Have you ever felt the silence that lives inside snowfall, not the kind that hushes roads and rooftops, but the ancient quiet that lingers in places where no footprints have ever been, where no fire has ever burned, where no voice has risen loud enough to disturb the stillness? There is a cold that is not merely weather, but memory, a breath of before. And in the north, so long ago that time still curls around its edges, that breath began to stir. They say that before all things there was nothing, no sky, no land, no breath, no gods. There was only Ginnungagap, a yawning space between fire and ice. To the south, the flame realm of Muspelheim, ever burning without mercy. To the north, the frost of Niflheim, cold beyond sorrow. And between them, the gap. Into that silence, frost crept slowly, drop by drop. Mist from Niflheim curled toward the center, meeting the heat-laced winds of Muspelheim. And where the two kissed, breath met breath, and the rime began to melt. From that melting came life. Ymir, they called him, though he had no name in the beginning. He was not man, not god, not beast. He simply was. A giant, born of ice and fire, breath and mist, his body vast, a landscape of its own. His heart beat like slow thunder beneath glaciers. From the sweat beneath his arms came more giants, sleeping and waking, and from his legs, strange children. But none knew why he breathed, or what dream had birthed him. Ymir wandered Ginnungagap, alone but never truly solitary. His breath shaped clouds, his footsteps carved echoes. He drank from the milk of Audumbla, the primal cow who licked the salty ice to find nourishment. She too was ancient. With each stroke of her tongue, she uncovered something hidden in the frost. A man named Buri, the forefather of the gods. And so, time unfolded. The children of Buri were not like the giants. They shimmered with fire, moved with swiftness. One of them, Odin, looked upon Ymir and felt no kinship. He did not hate him, but he feared him. Because Ymir was not cruel, but he was vast, and vastness cannot be ruled. Vastness does not bend to law. They say Odin, with his brothers Vili and Ve, slew Ymir, not with anger, but with purpose. When the great body fell, it did not crumble. It became. From Ymir's flesh they formed the earth. From his blood, the rivers and seas. His bones became mountains. His teeth became stone. His skull, the sky, and his brain, the drifting clouds, and from his eyebrows they shaped a wall, a circle to hold the world of men. Midgard. But listen. The giants did not vanish. From the blood that spilled, they fled to the edges, beyond the light, beyond the ordered lands. And in their hearts, they carried something older than words. The breath of Ymir. The knowing that they were born not of design, but of deep, wild accident. That they were not shaped. They simply were. They say, Ymir's death was the beginning of time, and that from that moment the gods began to measure. Moments, stars, fates. But who remembers what came before the clocks? Who remembers the silence beneath the snow? Some say that Ymir dreams still, that this world, with its mountains and rivers and clouds, is only the outer crust of his long sleep. That in the deep groaning of glaciers, in the murmur beneath frozen lakes, you can still hear his breath. Software endless. Forgotten. And if you stand long enough in the white stillness, and you breathe slowly enough, you might begin to feel it. A rhythm not your own, moving just beneath your heartbeat. That is him. That is the first. And so it was that a world was born, not from joy, not from anger, but from necessity. And from that necessity, sorrow. Because creation is always a kind of forgetting, a breaking of what was whole, so that many might live. The gods named themselves rulers. They shaped the sky with stars, planted the ash tree Yggdrasil, and bound the 9 realms into a circle of fate. but none of them forgot what they had done. Not truly. In the dark nights, Odin still walked alone, listening for echoes. And sometimes he would pause beside a lake, frozen through with time, and whisper a name no one else knew. The name of the giant who gave his body for all things. Not willingly, but fully. Ymir. And the wind would hush in response. So now you know. The ground beneath you is not just soil. It is the body of a being too vast to mourn. The rivers you drink from are not merely streams. They are veins, memory, sorrow in motion. And when the clouds drift over the moon, slow and pale and quiet, that is his mind, dreaming still. But the mists hold another tale. Have you seen them in the storm? Figures that glide through cloud and snow, their cloaks like wings, their eyes pale with knowing. They do not touch the ground, not quite. They pass through the smoke of burning fields, through the breath of the dying, through dreams where no dawn follows. And they choose. They are not what men believe. They are not beautiful maidens with golden hair and shining armor. They are older than that, more shadow than flame, more echo than song. They are the veil between life and death, riding the wind with hands open, never forcing, only collecting what was always meant to go. They are the Valkyries. It is said that when a warrior falls with honor, with courage, with sorrow still clinging to the last exhale, a Valkyrie appears. Not to reward, not to rescue, but to return what was borrowed. One of these veiled choosers bore a name barely spoken now, Herja. Hers was not the loud thunder of war. Hers was the quiet between battles, the hush before arrows fly, the cold certainty that some will not return. And once, long ago, Herja descended through snow as thick as memory. The field below was still. Blood soaked the earth, but no sound stirred. The wind held its breath, and there, among the fallen, was a man not yet dead. His name was Elric. Not a prince. Not a hero. Just a man who had fought to protect something small. A daughter, perhaps, or a village, or maybe only a dream. Herja hovered above him, unseen by the living. She saw his wound, deep but slow. She saw his eyes, wet but defiant, and she paused. Valkyries do not hesitate. They ride in, choose, and vanish. But Herja lingered. Something in his sorrow held her. Not his courage, not his blade, but the quiet in his heart, like a forest stripped bare by frost, still rooted, still waiting. She whispered, and though her lips made no sound, Elric's breath caught, his gaze flickered toward her, though he saw only cloud. And in that flicker, something passed between them. It is not permitted. Valkyries are not mortal. They do not feel. They do not ache. But that night, Herja returned not to Valhalla, where the chosen feast and fight for eternity. She turned away from the golden halls. She followed the thread of Elric's breath as it wove between life and death. And she found herself at the edge of another place. There is a hall the gods do not name. It lies not in Asgard nor Helheim, but between. A long corridor of pale light and drifting silence. There, the souls who are not chosen and not condemned wait, not in punishment, but in rest. And in this hall, Herja walked for the first time. The other Valkyries did not follow. They rode onward, cloud-bound, unshaken. But Herja walked alone among those who had died forgotten. Mothers who passed in childbirth, children lost to hunger, old ones who whispered their own names into the dark. No songs had been sung for them, no swords had been raised. But Herja listened. She sat beside one. A woman whose hands had once gathered herbs, whose voice had lulled a village to sleep. No saga held her name. But Herja wept, not loudly, not visibly, but something inside her veil unraveled. They say the gods noticed. Odin, with his all-seeing eye, turned toward her path with unease. For if a Valkyrie could choose not just who died in glory, But who deserved to be remembered? What then of the old laws? But Odin did not speak. He too knew the sorrow of choosing. And so Herja returned, again and again, not only to battlefields, but to shadowed corners, to nameless deaths, to unnoticed grief. She began to whisper names into the wind, names no one else remembered, and the wind, stirred by her breath, carried them. They say that if you walk into the snow and close your eyes, if you listen with your breath, not your ears, you might hear your grandmother's name, or the name of a child lost before birth, or the voice of someone whose story never passed into song. That is Herja, gathering the forgotten. And Elric? He did not die. Herja passed her hand over his wound, not to heal it, but to mark it. He would live, but he would carry the cold forever. A reminder of the moment the veil thinned. He never spoke of the figure in the mist, but for the rest of his days he carved strange symbols into wood. Wings made of fog, eyes made of starlight. He said they came to him in dreams, and in those dreams the dead were never alone. It is said that when Elric finally did pass, old and quiet, Herja was waiting, not above, not apart, but beside him. She did not take him to Valhalla. She walked with him to the silent hall of the Nameless, and she sang. Her voice was like snow falling through candlelight, soft, endless, real. Now when the sky darkens and the wind howls low, when war takes and leaves none to mourn, she is there. Herja, a Valkyrie not of the sword, but of memory. The choosers ride still, but now some of them do not seek glory. They seek those who loved deeply, suffered quietly, and left no mark but kindness. They are seen, but listen. There is yet another name whispered in the wind. Have you ever stood beneath a tree so old that it no longer remembers when it was young? Not just a tree of bark and branch, but a pillar of the world, where silence pools like sap and time clings to the roots like dew. There is such a tree. It does not grow in any forest men can walk. It grows between the worlds, its limbs touching gods and graves, its roots curled around the fates of all things. Its name is Yggdrasil. And beneath its roots, where light has never reached, the spinners sit. They are called the Norns. 3 women, old and young and ever shifting. Urd, who knows what was. Verdandi, who murmurs what is. And Skuld, who guards what has yet to be. They do not speak like we do. Their language is the twist of thread, the cut of shears, the hush that falls when a choice is made and cannot be unmade. They say that every life is a strand, and the Norns sit at the base of the world tree, weaving, not with malice, not with mercy, only with the strange rhythm of what must be. But once, long ago, a child found her way to the roots. She was no goddess, no chosen one, just a girl born in a quiet village near the edge of Midgard, where frost kissed the crops and wolves howled too near the firelight. Her name was Isa. She was small and often forgotten. She spoke little, but her eyes were wide and she listened to everything, the cry of owls, the rustle of grain, the sorrow in her mother's breath. One night, in the deep of winter, her mother died. There was no warning, just a stillness too heavy to breathe. And when the villagers spoke of fate, that tired word, that distant comfort, Isa did not weep. She walked into the forest. She walked for days. The snow deepened, the winds grew cruel, but Isa did not stop. She walked not with direction, but with purpose, a purpose she could not name. And then the trees changed. They grew taller, darker, their trunks twisted like sleeping serpents, their roots arched above the ground like frozen waves. And then, no trees at all, just mist. And then, a single trunk. It rose so high, the stars clung to its branches. Its bark was rough as old stone, warm to the touch. And beneath it, Threads, thousands, millions. Threads of light and shadow, gold and ash. And 3 women. They did not speak when Asa arrived. They only watched her, eyes deep and endless. Asa stood at the edge of the pool where the threads gathered, unsure, unafraid. Then she asked, "Why?" The word fell like a feather and echoed like thunder. Urd lifted a thread and held it toward her. Verdandi twisted another through her fingers. Skuld raised her blade, but paused. The girl did not flinch. "Why her? Why now?" Asa whispered. And for the first time, perhaps in all the turning of the worlds, the Norns answered. Not with words, but with a vision. Asa saw her mother. Not as she died, but as she once was. A girl herself. Running through snow, laughing, falling in love, crying alone in a storm. She saw a thread passed from one hand to another, from grandmother to daughter to grandchild. And in that passing, pain and joy braided together. She saw that her mother's death was not a punishment, nor a lesson, nor a debt. It was a fold in the weave, a curve in the shape no one could see from within. She fell to her knees, not in grief, so in understanding. The Norns did not comfort her. They are not made for comfort. But they placed a thread in her hand. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and she understood this was hers. She would carry it back. She would live it. She did not speak again. She turned. She walked away from the roots, back into the forest, back into the cold. But something had changed. She no longer walked with sorrow tucked behind her ribs. She walked with memory braided into her shadow. A quiet promise. Years passed. Asa grew. She married. She bore children. She planted gardens. And on long winter nights when the fire crackled low, she would whisper stories. Not loud, not for glory. Just soft tales of a tree and 3 women and the thread that hummed like a promise. The village did not ask how she knew. But when their own losses came, they sat a little closer to her fire. They listened a little longer, and they too began to understand that grief was not the end, that threads continue unseen, that even in death there is weaving. It is said that when Asa passed, old, loved, surrounded by quiet, the Norns paused in their spinning, just for a breath, and the thread she had carried all her life slipped back into the loom with a golden sigh. Now when the wind rustles deep in the forest, when trees groan in snow, when a child asks, "Why?" a hush falls, because the roots are listening, and the spinners remember. But let us now turn to another tale, one shaped not beneath the tree, but in the silence of the mountain above. Have you ever walked where fire cannot follow? Up among the high peaks, where breath turns to mist and snow sings against stone. There are places so cold they remember no summer. Mountains where even the gods rarely climb, not from fear, but from reverence. Because some sorrow is carved too deep, even for gods to smooth away. One such sorrow wore a hunter's cloak. Her name was Skadi. She was born of giants, daughter of Thiazi, the mountain eater. But she was no monster. She was winter itself, tall and silent, eyes like frozen rivers, laughter rare but sharp. Skis were her wings, bows her voice, solitude her home. And yet, even mountains are not beyond grief. For once, the gods tricked her father. They lured him into Asgard with promises. They played with their silver tongues, and when he did not serve their purpose, they killed him. Thiazi fell from the skies like a storm split open, his wings scorched, his body broken. Skadi found what remained. She knelt beside the ashes, and though her face did not change, the wind changed around her. She did not scream. She did not weep. She strapped on her snowshoes. She climbed down from her mountain, and she walked alone to Asgard. The gods had never seen her like. She did not threaten. She did not beg. She stood in the golden hall, snow clinging to her cloak, and said, "You have taken my father. Now repay me." The gods looked to Odin. Odin looked to Skadi, and in that long silence, the fire in the hearth crackled nervously. At last, Odin nodded. "You may choose a husband," he said, "from among us." It was no kindness. It was a riddle, for the gods stood behind a curtain, only their feet showing. Skadi, thinking herself clever, chose the finest, strongest pair, surely belonging to Balder, the Radiant One. But when the curtain fell, it was Njord she had chosen. Njord of the sea. Soft-voiced, smelling of salt and fish and tides, not Balder, not a god of fire or song or sky, a god of harbors. Skadi's face did not fall, but inside her a glacier cracked. Still she kept her word. She married Njord. They tried, they truly did. They lived first by the sea, in Njord's realm where gulls cried and waves licked the shore. But Skadi could not sleep. The gulls screeched, the wet sand stank of rot. The light never dimmed enough. So they moved to her home. Thrymheim, the mountain without fire, where stars pierced the sky like needles, where silence was sacred. Njord shivered. His feet ached. The wolves howled too near the door. They could not bear each other's worlds. So they parted, not with rage, but with sadness. It is said that even gods cannot marry without sacrifice. But Skadi did not mourn the loss. She returned to her mountain, alone again, yet not unchanged, because the gods had given her something else. When she first came, before the curtain, before the marriage, Loki had been forced to make her laugh, to appease her wrath. He tied his beard to a goat. They pulled and screamed and stumbled, and Skadi, icy, solemn Skadi, laughed, just once, like frost cracking under sunlight. That moment lingered. In her solitude, she remembered it. A flame, faint but real. And over time, Skadi became something the gods had not expected. A being who had walked into their world and walked back unchanged. A woman who had tasted revenge and instead chose distance. She became a symbol, not of vengeance, but of boundaries. When the snow falls heavily across a trail and no one can pass, that is Skadi drawing a line. When a woman leaves a hall with her dignity intact, refusing the feast and the fire, that is Skadi, choosing silence over compromise. She never returned to Asgard, but they never forgot her. In the longest winters, when the storms would not stop, Odin would speak her name beneath his breath. Not as a curse, as a reminder. There are gods who rule, and there are gods who resist. Skadi was the latter. Unyielding, unsoftened, unclaimed. And yet, when the auroras danced in the sky, it was said she sometimes skied beneath them, laughing. Not often, but sometimes. Even the coldest mountain may bloom with moss, if left undisturbed. Now, when you walk a path and see no footprints ahead, when your breath rises like smoke and your heart feels sharp with solitude, know this. You are not alone. Skadi walks with those who walk away, but the story does not end there. Have you ever looked toward the horizon where the sea meets sky and wondered what lies beneath the cold waves? They say the ocean holds secrets, deep, dark, and endless, not just of fish and shipwrecks, but of cities swallowed whole and names erased by time's tides. In the far north, beyond where the sun lingers only a whisper each day, there's a place no compass can find. A city hidden beneath ice, frozen in silence. It is said that Odin, the Allfather, once sought this city. Guided by a raven, his ever-watchful companion, he journeyed past known lands and into realms forgotten by gods and men. The raven, sleek and black as the void between stars, flew ahead, cawing softly. It was not a guide of kindness, but of truth. Odin followed, his one eye gleaming with questions older than the world itself. After days, he reached the edge of a frozen sea where no fire burned and no wind stirred. The ice was thick, endless, a mirror that held no reflection. There, beneath the surface, lay the city. Its spires were carved from crystal, shimmering faintly like trapped moonlight. Its walls were made of stone older than any mountain. No footsteps had crossed its streets in 1,000 years. Odin approached the edge and peered into the frozen depths. There, in the heart of the city, stood a great hall, not empty, but waiting, and within the hall, a mirror. Not a mirror of glass, not a mirror of silver, but a mirror of names. They say it showed not what one wanted to see, but what one truly was. Odin, who knew secrets that could unmake worlds, looked into the mirror, and what he saw was not his future, not his past, but his name, his true name. A name that echoed beyond the realms, beyond time, beyond even the gods' memory. What was that name? No one knows. Because the mirror does not show itself twice. It is said Odin's hand trembled as he touched the glass. His raven cawed sharply, as if warning, but Odin stayed. He saw the city breathe beneath the ice. Not dead, but sleeping. And he wondered, was this city once ruled by gods or giants, or by beings far older still? Beings who understood the delicate balance between worlds. Some say the city was built by the Vanir, gods of earth and magic. Others say it belonged to the elves or the spirits of the sea. But all agree on one thing: the city is not gone. It waits beneath the ice, dreaming, and the mirror is its heart. Odin did not stay long. He returned to Asgard, his mind heavy. No god spoke of what he saw, but sometimes, in the quiet moments before dawn, when the sky is the color of old stone, Odin will close his eye and whisper to his raven. He whispers a name, the name of the lost city, and the raven listens. But what did Odin see in that mirror, truly? Was it the reflection of his endless quest, or the secret of a world beyond knowing? They say that sometimes, when the northern lights dance wildly, the veil thins, and the lost city's light flickers beneath the ice, like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. If you listen carefully on a quiet night, you might hear the raven's call, sharp, distant, and full of knowing. And if you dare to follow, you may find yourself standing on the edge of something ancient, something forgotten, something waiting to be named. But listen, there is yet another name whispered in the wind. Have you ever felt the sea's breath in the silence of the deep? Not the restless waves, nor the roar of storms, but the quiet pulse beneath all tides, the slow, endless stirring of something vast and unseen. In the Norse tales, beneath Midgard's restless waters, sleeps a serpent so immense that its body encircles the world, biting its own tail. They call him Jörmungandr. He is not just a serpent. He is the line between worlds, the guardian of endings, the silent witness to fate's turning wheel. It is said that when Odin cast Jörmungandr into the ocean, the waters trembled and the world shuddered beneath the weight of his slumber. The serpent sank deep, curling beneath mountains and valleys, beneath the roots of Yggdrasil itself. His breath mingles with the currents. His heartbeat echoes in the hollows of the sea. For ages, he sleeps, quiet, unmoving, waiting. But even in sleep, the serpent dreams. They say his dreams are old as time, woven with sorrow and rage and something softer, a yearning for release. Jörmungandr's dream is the promise of an end and a beginning, wrapped in one endless circle. The gods fear his waking, because when the serpent rises, the world will quake, the seas will boil, the sky will burn. Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods. But in this waiting, there is something more. In the silence beneath the waves, the serpent remembers. He remembers the first breath of the world, the fall, of Ymir, the weaving of fate. He remembers the cries of giants and gods alike, the songs sung and forgotten. And sometimes, when the moon is hidden and the stars hold their breath, Jormungandr stirs. His movements send ripples through the water, faint enough that only the oldest whales hear. He dreams not just of destruction, but of transformation, because endings are not just death, they are also the slow unfolding of new life. They say that the serpent's coils hold the shape of the world's sorrow, all the grief that cannot be spoken, all the pain too vast to bear. And in his sleep, that sorrow is held safe, until the time comes, when the serpent will rise, when the world will break open, when the sky and sea will collide in a dance of fire and ice. And yet, there is a hush beneath the fear, because in that breaking, there is also hope. A hope that from the serpent's sleep will come a new dawn, a world reborn. The old stories whisper of a child who will survive the end, a child who will walk through the ashes and find the first green shoot, and the serpent, fierce and terrible, will curl back into silence. But until then, he sleeps, and we wait. And if you listen to the ocean on a still night, when the world is quiet and your breath is slow, you might hear it, the echo of Jormungandr's breath. Software endless, forgotten. And so the story comes full circle, the serpent beneath the world, dreaming still. But the story does not end there. It only begins again. And so the ancient breath quiets, the last whisper of the serpent fades into the vastness, and the circle of stories closes, folding soft as dusk over frost-covered earth. Have you ever felt the hush that follows the telling? That fragile moment where silence stretches wide, and the world seems to hold its breath, waiting for the next song to begin. Here, in the stillness, the echoes of the north settle deep within you. The frost giant's forgotten sorrow, the Valkyries' quiet choosing, the roots of Yggdrasil whispering in the dark, the mountain's cold solitude, the lost city dreaming beneath ice, and the world serpent's endless sleep. They say all stories end where they begin, in the breath between worlds, in the space where silence is sacred, where memory and hope intertwine beneath the veil of stars. You, too, are part of this weaving, your own thread, fragile and fierce, drawn from the ancient loom, pulled taut by longing and light, woven through the tapestry of forever. So rest now. Let the mists rise softly around you, the wind carry your dreams gently to hidden places, and the silence hold you close, deep, endless, and whole. Because in the quiet, you are remembered, you are loved, you are home.